we have to look at what the tribal wants, what he needs, and then sort of plan your strategies of intervention accordingly. Somewhere they make dokra, somewhere they make wood, somewhere they do cast iron, somewhere they do tamarind, some they do harde, behda, chivaral. So you have to be planning a strategy based on the local requirements, and then the inputs that the Vandan program bestows them, cash, training, marketing support, marketing abilities, and then the whole system grows. The law is that a tribal land cannot be sold to non-tribals. And anything that grows on that land, like teak trees or sal trees, cannot be sold to non-tribals. Now, these unscrupulous traders, and if you have to sell it, you have to take the collector's permission so that fair deal is made. Now, these unscrupulous traders, they made those fake transfer deals, showing it as a sale of a tribal to a tribal, whereas it was sold to someone else. So a teak tree after 100 years sells for almost about 5 to 10 lakhs of rupees. One teak tree, which is 100-year-old. And you have hundreds and lakhs of such trees in Bastar. Now, these traders got these transfer deals made in the name of tribals to tribals, but real beneficiaries, real buyers were somebody else. They paid the tribals, say, 500 rupees and a bottle of cheap liquor, and the transaction was done. And crores of worth trees were taken away by these middlemen. And this business was known as the Malik Makbuja.
Namaste, Pravir Krishna, sir. Welcome on the Awaara Musaafir show. Sir, firstly, this is a big honor for me to having you on the show and get to talk with you, because the topic which we are covering today, ये बहुत ही important topic है, and I would confess something straight up, because coming from my generation, I have seen this larger trend that the tribal economy, the tribal culture, we have been ignorant about that, because when we live in cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, we don't come in contact with tribals as much as you have done. And I would just show the book to the audience as well. This is the beautiful yellow covered book, Tryst with the Tribes. This is the story of Mr. Pravir Krishna, and the way you have dealt with the tribes, you have dealt with the tribal economy. It is phenomenal, sir. So firstly, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much, Jayesh. It's my privilege and pleasure to talk to you, and especially youngsters who are keen into changing things. So I'd be very happy to tell you what we can do to change things around and make it better for the tribals.
Yeah. So, sir, like as I was saying, that when we live in cities, so I come from like Mumbai. I have grown up in Mumbai for as long as I can remember, and something like tribes, this never even makes to the normal conversations. So how did you come in contact with the tribals? Was it like your first posting in Sarguja, or even before that you were in contact with, like, you had some clue about the tribals?
Yes, we had heard stories about exploitation of the tribals and the wonderful life that they have, the myriad colors that they live in, the civilization, their culture. I'd heard about it, read it in books, but it all started when I was first posted as collector of district of Sarguja, which is a predominantly tribal district, which has a large tribal population. And from there, I went on to Bastar. That was another entirely tribal district, and a large one at that. Both districts were one of the biggest in the country, with large populations of tribals. And then finally, my stint as MD TRIFED for almost 5 years. So for almost 14 years of my career of, say, 35 years, have been devoted to working with the tribals, for the tribals, and of thinking and doing and finding ways to change things, turn them around.
Right. So, sir,
TRIFED, like you said, in Bombay, the picture that people in urban areas would have of a tribal is poverty-stricken, garib log, but it's a completely different picture that you'll get when you read the book. They're extremely thriving, they're extremely colorful, they're extremely rich cultural heritage that they carry on, and wonderfully skilled people. They just lack the marketing abilities, the way to connect to large markets. That's why they are exploited. So that is the whole story. What do we do to get them into the enterprise mode of development so that they can reap the fruits of their skills and assets that they own and that they produce so beautifully?
Right. So like there are like certain things which I wanted to ask you, because as I said that I have been ignorant and I cannot help it, but there are certain things which I wanted to know. So there are maybe like 1,000 issues, but some of the major issues with tribals today is the socio-economic problems and the way they are exploited by the middlemen, which
Yes,
is middlemen is not a bad term, but when it comes to the tribal economy, it is. So
absolutely. Right. Yeah, Jesh, go on.
yeah, so before I come to that, there's something which I found very interesting in the book, and this is in the first few pages where you mention that you developed a way of communication through the buses, transport buses. So what was this method? Because this is something very new for me.
So I'm talking of the times between 94 and 97,
Right.
when communication was very, very difficult. There were no landline, there were no mobiles. Landlines used to be very, very difficult, and especially getting to a tribal area, it was next to impossible. It took us 3 to 4 days to send a messenger and get the messages
Right.
out. So what we did was there were buses which were plying, and then we got to talk to their proprietors and the bus owners, and we created a system by which we would deliver our messages to the conductors. We say give them a packet marked to the
Right.
sarpanch of a tribal village, which he will ensure that it goes to that village. So every day we developed this system of communicating from our side whatever we needed to, and
Yeah.
getting messages from them. If there was some communication which the sarpanch or any villager wanted to send to us, it would come. So by morning and evening, we had two picking up, sending of information and picking up the information that we got back. And we were created a network through which we could get in touch with the large district,
Right.
which otherwise would take months and at times weeks to just communicate.
Right. So, and there's one more thing which I found very beautiful in the book, which is, and this was the first time when I got to know the life of an IAS officer, where you have mentioned that there was this one Dadi Amma with whom you used to meet and you used to play dholaks and bhajans with the old age people over there. And when she passed away, she actually made the people there, like the people over there, she told them that my last wish is that Mr. Pravir Krishna should be the one who gives the light to my pyre. So like making one-on-one relationship with the locals, with the tribals, is that an important part of the job?
Yes, it is. But if you work for the tribals and you work with your heart and with some passion, you have to develop this connect. It happens automatically, Jesh, let me tell you.
Right.
So we found that a large number of old age people were really living a very difficult life with very poor means and very poor, and at times very poor interpersonal relationship with the children.
Right.
So we created this old age home where any person who was above 70 or 75 or 80 could come and stay as a guest of the district administration.
Wow.
And where we had this provision for their good food, health, looking after their health and medicines and clothing and everything, which was a complete care, full old age home where we took full care of them. So it had a large population. So every Sunday, me and my children and my wife would go there, sit with them, have a breakfast, to just see how things are going and how the food was being served. Just my thing was to just have a little connect with the tribals who were staying there. And they were all old people. They needed medical health. Most of them needed very intense medical care. They needed good, nutritious food. And the budget that we had, so there were a lot of contributions from the district people. So my intention was to go and just see that things are going well. But in this process, I sort of have some interest in music. So I started playing the dholak when they were singing songs. So this connect gradually evolved. And one day I got this message, as you've seen in the book, that this Dadi Amma, whom we called her Dadi Amma, has passed away. And that she has wished me that my beta will give me, do the last rites. It was very touching, and I still, my eyes swell up, well up the moment I think of that incident. But we went there and I did the last rites, and she gave me a tulsi mala, which I've kept with me till this day. And so that was all that she had. And so it was wonderful. It was a good experience. The thing is that you do something, it's not something that we do for them. You're duty bound to do that. It's why you have been placed there. It's why you have been positioned there, to look at all aspects of human interpersonal relationships and how things can be improved for them. So it was a wonderful communication strategy, or a communication strategy which happened We just wanted to give some solace to these old people. And ultimately, since I visited there every week, and then my children became fond of them, they were very affectionate and loving to them, and they played with them, and this bond developed. And
Right.
gradually,
Right. So, sir, taking this same conversation further, I really want to know, like you mentioned that when we talk about tribals, the first sort of images that come to our mind, I don't know why, but it is like poverty, illiteracy. So when you are there in those areas, when you're talking with the tribals, who are these tribals really? And like, what is that whole, experience of being with them like?
yes, I tell you, the tribal system that we have in the country, that you have here is, we think that tribals can exist on their own. बड़े खुश बड़े संतोषी लोग हैं और
Right.
उनको उनकी ज़रूरतें बड़ी कम हैं और बड़े उसमें वो रह सकते हैं. And the image that we have of a poverty stricken, under uneducated and living in jungles, forests. But the fact is that there are extremely skillful people. They have been producing things, bell metal, clothing, woolens, woodwork, wrought iron, anything that you can think of. 26,000 things is what the tribal communities produce. But what they lack is marketing ability, linking it up with the market. And they have been completely under the clutches of these middlemen because they don't move very freely beyond, say, 10 kilometers of their village.
Right.
There's been a huge nexus of middlemen and traders who buy these wonderful commodities in raw form or in finished form at very cheap rates. So the tribal development, as we see, there is a welfare motive of development, welfare strategy of development. You build communication channels, roads, networks of schools and hospitals, culverts, bridges, hand pumps, residential accommodation. But this doesn't add to the income of the tribal. It adds to the subsistence of the tribal. What we need to do is add to the income of the tribal. And that will happen if we link their trade to large markets. So simple example, Jayesh, like tamarind is produced in the forest. In Bastar, where I worked for almost 4 years as a collector, about 1,000 tons of tamarind is produced every year. The raw price of tamarind in the primary market, which is the village hard bazaar, is around 30 rupees now. You deseed it and defiber it, tamarind goes up to 200 to 400 rupees.
Wow.
And you package it, brand it, it goes to 800 to 1,200 rupees a kg. So 30 rupees into 5 kgs, say 150 rupees ki raw material, say you produce 1,200 worth of finished product. And in the value chain, the tribal is getting only 5 to 10%. The rest of them is being taken by traders. So the tribal remains poor and poverty stricken when he's the owner of that resource. And in the value chain, he's getting only 10%. So what we have been saying is that we need to get him to make around 70% of the value chain. And that will happen if he does the branding, packaging, and marketing himself. Because this is where money is made. He brings it on his headload from the jungle and sells it to middlemen who then do the value addition, branding, packaging, and marketing. So the owner of the produce, which is the tribal under the Forest Rights Act, gets about 10% of the value chain, and say 80% of it is taken away by middlemen. So the tribal who's the owner remains in poverty. The tribal doesn't do agriculture, doesn't do too much of government jobs or corporate jobs or any other job. He's 70% of his livelihoods comes from handicrafts, handlooms that he produces, and the forest produces that he gets from the jungle. But out of it, out of these two value chains, he gets only 10% of the final product. So that is why he has remained poor. So we have said that the Vandhan route to development will have to be through the enterprise mode. Get enterprise into the tribal. He's a wonderful producer. He's a skillful producer. He's been producing world-class artifacts from thousands of years, hundreds of years. Nobody else can produce the bell metal, the dokra, the woodwork, the wrought iron, the clothing, the jewelry, the pottery, the 26,000 listed items which we did in TRIFED. But the poor fellow gets just 10% of the value chain. So if this can be taken to 60%, 70%, his income goes up by 5 times. And then he gets to be normally up the economic ladder. So about 5.5 crores of our tribal population of 10 crores lives in jungles. And this is, if we can do this and take it to scale, So the whole book is talking about how handlooms, handicrafts, and forest producers can be sort of branded and marketed by the tribal himself through self-help groups, through
Right.
economically viable community groups that we form. And then if he can do this marketing himself. So that is the thesis. The thesis is the enterprise route of tribal development. The welfare route of tribal development is needed. You need schools, you need hospitals, you need roads, you need culverts, you need ration, you need everything of that. But till you add to his income by getting his products into the big market and add to his income, he is not getting above the poverty level. So his subsistence level of income you want to maintain? No, we want him to rise up the ladder, the poverty ladder, and get into making some real good money. And this is what the Vandhan experiment that we started in Bastar and now in at TRIFED has proven to the world. We have set up 50,000 centers. Wow. 50,000 centers across the country, which are value addition, branding and marketing. और फिर ये पूरे समूह, पूरे देश में करीब करीब 3-4 वर्षों में प्रधानमंत्री जनजातीय विकास मिशन का स्वरूप इसने ले लिया है और ये बहुत तेजी से आगे जाएगा.
सर तो लाइक आई हैव अ वेरी वियर्ड काइंड ऑफ डाउट हियर. अब जैसे एंड मैंने बुक में भी देखा कि आपने इकोनॉमी पे काम किया है एंड यू वर वेरी क्लोजली रिलेटेड विद द ट्राइबल इकोनॉमी, बट एट द सेम टाइम यू वर आल्सो वर्किंग टुवर्ड्स लिटरेसी एंड द ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द ट्राइब्स. नाउ व्हेन द ट्राइब्स बिकम लिटरेट एंड फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से कि एक ट्राइबल विलेज है एंड इट बिकम्स समथिंग लाइक मुंबई फॉर एग्जांपल, सो जो आप वहां से इकोनॉमी जो आपको ग्रो करनी है विच इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द हैंडीक्राफ्ट हैंडलूम्स वाला सेक्टर, तो अब ये जो लिटरेट ट्राइबल्स है वुडंट दे प्रेफर डूइंग द कॉर्पोरेट जॉब्स? वो कैसा इक्वेशन है? बिकॉज दिस इज अ वेरी वियर्ड डाउट दैट आई हैव.
यस आई टेल यू. देखो ये जो जंगल में जो ये 5.5 करोड़ के लोग रह रहे हैं, ये पिछले 1000 सालों से रह रहे हैं. So there is no question of getting them outside their habitat. Forests have existed where tribals have existed, and tribals have existed where forests have existed. So it's a symbiotic relationship. Both reinforce the other. So the idea is not to get them out, but to make them earn more out of the work that they are doing.
Yeah.
People who can study, go to the market, go to the urban areas, get government jobs, corporate jobs, they're most welcome. We're not preventing them from doing it. But the ones we are talking about are the ones who have stayed in these areas for the last maybe 1,000 years. 20 generations have been there. And this generation, they have genetically inherited the skills and the art of living in these difficult terrain and tough terrain. Now, but in doing this, developing this art, they've also developed this art of wonderful skills of production through which they are subsisting. But this subsistence level over the last 1,000 years or 500 years has been honed to perfection. And the things that they are producing are world class. Right. They don't have the ability to market, value add, brand, package. This is the component that needs to be added along with health, education, and infrastructure, which will add the social infrastructure and the economic infrastructure, then the economic well-being of the tribe. So if you do that, you improve the infrastructure, the communication strategies will improve, health and education quality will improve. There'll be people who will get into colleges, universities, and then higher education. Very good. But then the ones who are in the jungles, who are living on their skills, you need to give a good market to their produce at fair and equitable prices. The exploitation that is into this needs to be removed, because the places where this trade takes place is in deep interior of the jungles. There is nothing which is regulating that. So unscrupulous middlemen for business is essential, but here it takes the shape of a predatory nature. They become exploitative. जो 30 रुपए की चीज है वो 5 रुपए में खरीदेंगे, जो 5,000 की चीज है वो 500 में खरीदेंगे, और जो 10,000 की चीज है वो 200 में खरीदेंगे. So and the tribal, since he cannot get out of that primary market 10-kilometer radius of his village, he is happy selling it at that price. So this needs to be connected. This production unit needs to be connected to the large markets and directly linked so that 70% of the value chain flows to this sector. And Jayesh, I can tell you, this has started happening for the last 5-10 years. And this will be the next Amul. I tell you that Amul revolution that happened in Gujarat, milk to rest of the world, from Anand to rest of the world. Similarly, it will be from all tribal pockets of the country to the rest of the world. And that is how income will be generated, higher incomes will be generated, and the tribal will be 5 times, 6 times, 10 times better than what he was. And living in the same habitat. Then he will send his child to school, he will take his wife to hospitals, he'll get safe deliveries, he'll look after his health, he'll buy good clothes, he'll buy a motorcycle, he'll buy a car, he'll buy a jeep to transport it. So if money starts pouring in the economy, however, whoever grows through trade this is the way that he grows. A small trader starts with, say, 1 lakh rupees and then becomes a crorepati after 10 years if he has the business back. How does it happen? Because he gets about 60 to 70% of the value chain. Then he has some surpluses. And out of those surpluses, he expands his trade, looks after his family, builds a house, buys a car, buys a moped, buys a motorcycle, sends his children to school. So this is the natural process of economic growth of any system. This is what has to be done into the tribal system. Since he lives in a forest, doesn't mean that he has to be taken out of it to develop. But development has to go there, and the strategies with the technologies and with the smart and soft technologies that we have, this is eminently doable, and this is what we have talked in the book.
Right. So this is basically a very bottom heavy system that you're trying to make now, and the trickle up effect, if I'm not wrong.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's a bottoms up strategy where we have to look at what the tribal wants, what he needs, and then sort of plan your strategies of intervention accordingly. Somewhere they make dokra, somewhere they make wood, somewhere they do cast iron, somewhere they do tamarind, some they do harle, behda, chiora. So you have to be planning a strategy based on the local requirements, and then the inputs that the Vandhan program bestows them, cash, training, marketing support, marketing abilities, and then the whole system grows. The bell metal, which sells for, say, 200 rupees a kg in the market, sells the same amount, sells for 50,000 in Delhi. So if the tribal can sell it in Delhi, so what is sold for 200 rupees gets 50,000. Wonderful, delicate articles that you find in Delhi Heart and you find at other places. They all come from Bastar through a middleman. So we are trying to open a channel where the tribal himself comes and sells it at this place and makes all the.
So it is a direct to the consumer kind of model.
Direct to the consumer through the tribal production houses. We call it tribal food parks, tribal production manufacturing hubs, tribal tribal industrial parks. So where all that is being produced is marketed by the tribal himself.
Got it. So, so one little thing which, this is one of my dream, that I want to someday start a school where we can teach the students, be they of any age, we can teach them skills. And skills which are useful in the maybe in the modern world, right? So it can be video editing, it can be social media marketing. So are you also planning to is the system basically planning to educate the tribals in these areas? Because what I see is that if they are trained in, say, social media marketing or photo editing, video editing, they can use the skills to sell their products.
Absolutely. Yes, I tell you, we should not underestimate the tribe. When we started the technological interventions and all those, we said that we'll put you on a e-com platform, we'll do only transaction through the digital technologies. They picked it up so quickly. It's not that they might not be reading books of physics and IT, but the moment they're told and they find it useful, they pick it up. So the technological information and the transfer of technology and the transfer of technological knowledge that is needed for this work is transferable and easily acceptable for the tribe. And this can be done. So it's not that he's illiterate, and he's not that illiterate that we think. So while he may not be knowing how to find out the algorithm for transfer of information to the system, but once you have told them how to punch what into the system and how to receive payments and how to take orders and how to send products, he does it wonderfully well. So it took about 3 months' time for every system that we logged on to the e-portal to completely master it. And they're all now on the e-portal, and about 3,000 tribal suppliers are doing trade to the tribes in India portal, all on the .com. So it needs a little facilitation. Even you, if you want to start an e-com thing, you cannot do it by yourself. You need a little facilitation. You need a little marketing side. You need a technological support. Even me. So they were equally smart. And the moment a little facilitation was done, and they knew that by doing that, their Dokra was, which was fetching 200, is now fetching 20,000. They immediately learned the whole technology, mastered it, and they're now doing straight business. So that is not a hamper. That is not a prohibiting or restricting development of technology, IT intervention. They pick it up very quickly. So to say that, they will pick it up very quickly the moment they see a benefit. And they see benefit. If you can see a benefit, and they know that if they're being exploited, they'll run away. They're also very smart people. So the moment they see a benefit, they'll join it whole hog and the whole thing.
Right. So this is something which I read in the book as well about the Imli Andolan, where the tribe, you were somewhere worried that it might happen, it might not happen, but they came for the rally, and they came more than your expectations in the numbers.
It came beyond wildest expectations. There was this trade lobby which was already, they were under pressure because their middlemen had been removed, they had been thrown out. And the tribal was doing direct business with the traders, getting 5 to 6 times the business. So these traders created a huge hangama, and they wanted to thwart it using political and some unscrupulous ways to scuttle the movement. So we gave this call and wanted about 10,000 people to come and discuss with us what are the problems and how we can solve them. More than 1.5 lakh people descended on that little township of Jagdalpur. And then it was such a massive show that we were absolutely caught unawares, and then it was such a peaceful and everything, and that gave us the strength to look, they have understood that this is beneficial to them, and this needs to be taken forward. And then we put our mind and soul and heart into the whole system, fought all which came in the way, and this is how we achieved what we achieved.
Right. So one thing, like when I read the book, I immediately went on Google and I searched for like the tribal economy of India and how it is growing. So one article which came up was that TRIFED is like it is linking the tribals with Amazon as well now, and majority of the e-commerce portals. Now, one problem which I see here is that when you are selling something on Amazon, you need to have the products in bulk, and the tribal products, I'm guessing these are very unique kind of products because no one else makes them. So one tribal product may differ from tribals of the another place in the same country. So how are you planning to make this into a bulk kind of product market?
I tell you, this is the USP. We say that is handmade and no two things are the same. So initially we had this problem of how to create this because they make by hand. So no two things are exactly the same like Amazon specifications. So we had a meeting with the leadership of Amazon and told them that, look, our painters, the tribal painters, they do paintings and no two paintings can be the same. It's not copy, paste and punch and then sell. So this then we came up with the idea of a unique selling proposition, and we write that these are handlooms and handicrafts. While they can be made in thousands, but no two products will be the same. While they will be 80% identical, 60% identical, 70% identical, they cannot be exactly the same. And if you can, then this demand grew. तो that trade mentality के मिल में डाला और एक तरह की 1 लाख साड़ियां बना दी और बेच डाला, हमने कहा ये ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है, हम ये बेईमानी नहीं करेंगे ट्राइबल्स के साथ, वो हाथ से बनाते हैं और हर हाथ की बनाई चीज दूसरे से भिन्न होती है. सो अगर आपको चाहिए तो लीजिए, नहीं तो हम लोग दूसरा रास्ता देखेंगे, दूसरा रास्ता क्या है, हम अपने ट्राइबल्स को बेईमानी नहीं करवाएंगे कि तुम मिल में बनाओ और छापा लगा के बनाओ. So they agreed, the top leadership agreed, and then this became the special selling जो कहते हैं ना, that thing, USP. And then this caught the market. So this is what we very actively promote. These are tribal products made by hand. While we can bulk it, but it cannot be the exactly machine-made precision to the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then demand grew, people accepted it, and now we're setting up shops in 100 embassies across the world. So it's not only the country, but also 100 other countries of the world that we are expanding our footprint.
So this was like, I really wanted to know this as well, because अब जैसे हम कहते हैं कि tribal economy से कोई एक product आ रहा है, तो for India तो it is like natural because we know somewhere we know कि this is India, मतलब हमारे देश का product है. But when you are selling on Amazon, तो it is going to, I am guessing 190 odd countries. So is there a demand in other countries for these products?
Yes. बहुत ज़्यादा. We are unable to meet that huge demand.
Wow.
इतना ज़्यादा demand है कि you just have to tell tribal, handmade and ethnic. तो उसकी there is a separate market all over the world, across the world for this.
Wow.
And at times we are unable to meet up to that. वहाँ पे हम लोग न्यूयॉर्क में एक एम्बेसी ने वहाँ पर ऑर्गेनाइज किया था one day festival. We sent about 20 lakh worth of items and it sold out in 2 hours.
Wow.
So we thought कि ये 20 लाख की सामग्री है, एक आध हफ्ते 10 महीने 1 महीने 2 महीने में बिकेगी, 2 घंटे में बिक गई. 2 hours. So there is a huge demand because they are world class. What we say, कोई fakes तो है ही नहीं कि लोग उसको समझ लेते हैं. So they're all genuinely handmade and पारखी लोग भी समझ लेंगे, normal लोग भी समझ लेंगे कि ये बड़ी मुश्किल से बनाई चीज है. So उसकी बहुत डिमांड है, उस वही है इसको अच्छे तरीके से मार्केट किया जाए और फिर इसको इसका अच्छा व्यापार हो तो ट्राइबल की इकोनॉमी, ट्राइबल का इनकम बढ़ेगा.
Right. But sir, one thing which I've seen is कि TRIFED and any government organization, the system which is affiliated to the tribals, वो नहीं चाहते कि middlemen हो इस पूरे economy में. Now, there are brands which basically take up the tribal products and they मतलब उनका marketing वो फिर अपने style से करते हैं, they brand it under them. So, are you planning to get more such private sectors into this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. We want the middlemen to behave like moral middlemen, who do business morally, who do business fairly, who do business as it ought to be done. So, we welcome such people, such traders, such big houses, corporate houses, PSUs. Everybody is welcome because this has to be a partnership. Once having initiated it, it ultimately needs to convert into a partnership, but ethical partnership. You can't put a sumo wrestler against a 20 kg wrestler. So it has to be fair conditions of work, fair exchange of business, and fair transactions, so that the producer gets at least 60% of the value chain, and you make 40% of profit. So this is what we are welcoming: private initiative, private trade, corporates, everybody, but at equitable terms. You cannot exploit a businessman who's doing business for 100 years. It could be Amazon or it could be anyone else in the world. But the poor tribal, since his limitations of marketing ability and glued to his village, so this has to be broken. And once that is done, private trade is welcome, and it will have to be the private trade which takes to the world, but on fair and equitable terms.
Right.
So this is what our objective is, to facilitate trade, PPP partnerships, but the terms of trade have to be in favor of the tribal to start with. And then purely business. Do it as a business is done. So the producer makes his profit and the retailer and the bulk seller makes his profit. But here the question was that the producer was making 5%, the rest of them were sharing the 95% of it. So that has to change. That has to change.
Yeah. And I asked this question because there are like two major reasons. One is like I saw Shark Tank India recently, and there were many brands. I think so. This was one from Bangalore which sells tribal products on the airport. Wo shops hote airport lounge and everywhere they sell their products there. And there's this one brand from Nagpur, Simply Desi. So what they do is they take products from the tribal people. And this market it according to their needs. Matlab they brand it under their banner and then they sell it. So via them I got to know ki honey is like there are several tastes of honey, and mujhe kabhi pata nahi tha because I have just tasted one that jo general taste hai.
Yes. Absolutely right. So this is what needs to be done, so that the producer gets his share in the value chain. There has to be a margin for the middleman. There has to be a margin for the retailer and the bulk seller. But then the producer here has to get his fair deal and fair share. So that is all. That is what is all that is needed to be done. And once this is done, once they taste blood, the tribals as the producers, well, the system will take care of itself.
Yeah. Sir, like there was this one very interesting, or I don't know if it's interesting in matlab positive manner, but you were sent to Bastar, like you transferred from Sarguja to Bastar, and you've mentioned that it happened very suddenly. You were kidnapped from the train, technically. So you were sent there to get rid of the Malik Makbuja जो हो रहा था वहाँ पे. तो can you talk about this, because this was something जो मैंने कभी सुना नहीं है, and it was happening running in a very hideous way.
Yes, yes. So this went like this. Tribals in the Bastar, in tribal areas, the law is that the tribal land cannot be sold to non-tribals. And anything that grows on that land, like teak trees or sal trees, cannot be sold to non-tribals. Now, these unscrupulous traders, and if you have to sell it, you have to take the collector's permission so that fair deal is made. Now, these unscrupulous traders, they made those fake transfer deals showing it as a sale of a tribal to a tribal, whereas it was sold to someone else. So a teak tree after 100 years sells for almost about 5 to 10 lakhs of rupees. One teak tree, if it is 100-year-old, and you have hundreds and lakhs of such trees in Bastar. Now, these traders got these transfer deeds made in the name of tribals to tribals, but real beneficiaries, real buyers were somebody else. They paid the tribals, say, 500 rupees and a bottle of cheap liquor, and the transaction was done. And crores of worth trees were taken away by these middlemen. And this business was known as the Malik Makbuja thing. This Malik Makbuja is the act by which tribal is prevented from selling his land. So this was unearthed, and then it raged. There was a Supreme Court hearing where multiple cases were filed, and government had to file hundreds of replies and why this was not done and who's responsible. So a lot of responsibility fixing had to be done. A lot of people had to be brought to book, and a lot of these settlements of factories had to be done. So it took us a long time to settle it. And ultimately, this we could get over this unscrupulous practice and put a complete halt to it and punish the guilty very severely. About 300 to 400 people were sent to jail for criminal offenses under the Revenue Criminal Acts. And then we could settle it, say, 6 months of Supreme Court, High Court, and a lot of other interventions. And then our own proactive action by which we punished the guilty very severely. And ultimately, we could bring it to fruition and a fair deal, what you call a fair deal to tribals. So from there we started by tribal को जो उसके जंगल में जो चीजें हैं, लकड़ी छोड़ के, टिम्बर छोड़ के, अथाह चीजें जिससे वो उसकी इनकम बढ़ सकती है. So why don't we look at non-timber forest producers? Timber is state property, और उसमें बहुत सारे contractor, ठेकेदार और nexus of other people get in. So why don't we get to non-timber forest producers, the minor forest producers, which are owned by the tribals, और उसकी अगर उनको हम सही कीमत दिला लें, तो 2 लाख करोड़ की तो अकेला होता है non-forest producers. So if we can do this fairly, tribals would have got a fair deal. And this is what is that pushed me there. They thought that this fellow is a little team khopdi ka hai, ye kar lega. So, but it took us, put us into the 20-25 cases we faced all over the places, personal, but ultimately truth prevailed and the guilty were booked. And some sanity was restored in the tribal heartland.
And I'm guessing that this was the if आप इस केस पे नहीं जाते तो शायद जो ट्राइबल इकोनॉमी है उसके तरफ आपको पुश नहीं मिलता, because this is where NTFP came. And
जंगलों को हम वो टिम्बर से एसोसिएट करते थे और फिर आदिवासियों को हैंडपंप और कुएं बनाना और घर बनाना और फ्री घर और फ्री राशन, इस पे उनको बहला के रखते थे. So the whole economy was begging this question of why not value addition, जो दूसरे कर रहे ट्राइबल क्यों नहीं कर सकते. So we diverted the whole attention towards a fair and equitable way of dealing with the tribal development issues, and in a system where he gets a fair and equitable deal, and honestly he can make a living and do well as anybody else.
So since the start of this podcast, I have been meaning to ask you this one question. I see a lot of books behind you. So are there any like good books that you're reading right now, or any of your favorite books that you would want to recommend?
Yes, I'm reading a lot of, immediately I'm reading 3-4 books which are on my table. One is I'm reading about this, I'll show you. I'm reading a book on Dara Shikoh.
Dara Shikoh,
He's a wonderful character, tragic character of Indian history.
Yeah.
But I'm reading this book. This is what I'm reading currently.
Dara Shikoh is Aurangzeb's brother, right?
Yes, Aurangzeb's eldest. He's eldest of Aurangzeb. Another book I'm reading, this one.
Good Economics, yeah.
For Hard Times. This is Abhijit Banerjee, another excellent book. And the third book that I'm reading at the moment is this one. Ayn Rand's The Virtue of Selfishness.
The Virtue of Selfishness, yeah.
So these are my current reads, and I normally read 3 to 4 books per week.
Yeah.
These are the 3 books which I've started last Saturday, and hopefully will finish it by the next coming Saturday. So reading is a good habit. These days, you see with the internet and all taking over, youngsters have lost this habit of reading. So I would recommend, and the final book I'll recommend everybody is this one, which I have.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Yes, absolutely.
It's not because I have written it. It's a very good heart, straight from the heart story, which tells you about how tribals are, how beautiful these people are, and how good is their journey, and how well it has to be seen in a very positive light. And I'll recommend all your readers to buy it from Amazon. It's available. You order your copy now, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it.
Absolutely.
There are some very humorous anecdotes, some very interesting. The life of a bureaucrat. Everybody thinks a bureaucrat has a life which is cushy, and they have to just sit and move on cars. Well, it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of hard work to do a good job.
Right.
And I recommend your readers to get into a habit of reading, buying at least 3-4 books per month, and then reading them. Select your book of your choice, and it adds to your persona. The beautifully written books, they're all brilliant efforts that people do. And when you read it, it adds to your knowledge, it adds to your personality, it adds to your ability to deliver. I can tell you, it adds to your ability to deliver, inspires you. At times, I've read books from excellent, I've read many books on Napoleon. I've read many books on Akbar. I've read many books on Shivaji. So these are all people who have inspired hundreds and thousands and crores of people over generations. Read it. Listening and forwarding through WhatsApp doesn't help. So if people read it themselves, the original text, and what these people, these wonderful men of destiny did, so it makes a wonderful thing to be a good, to be a reader of good books, and the books that you like. And once you are into it, it's addictive. I tell you, it's addictive. So every day I must read about 100 pages. And if I don't do that, I think something is missing.
So I so much relate with this, because I started reading.
Plenty of books behind you.
Yes, so I have completely stopped watching films and web series. I watch it like very rarely,
You feel that it's such a waste of time. Somebody else Somebody else is trying to make believe what you really don't want to, or you're swayed into it. So read it, read the original text, read newspapers, as many, watch television, all right, do internet surfing, but read the original text. And these are the khan hai, gyan ki jo bhandar hai, idhi mein hai. And expand your horizon, expand your basic systems.
Yeah, and I 100% agree, because when I talk with people of my generation, I always see this, especially on internet, that they are fighting over mindless things without reading anything. So reading is a good habit.
तो दूसरे 4-5 WhatsApp के messages को देख के लड़ रहे हैं.
Right.
तुम खुद के समझ के देख लो. If you sincerely believe in that, very good. Very good. Why not? But जो कहते हैं ना कि अधूरा ज्ञान जो होता है.
Right. So I think so. There's one muhavara also in Hindi. Khali dimag shaitan ka ghar hota hai, right? So
fit with books, read original text, whomever you like, but read his original writing, and then understand what he has said. Don't look at the middlemen who are interpreting it for you. You do it yourself, and then get linked to the big markets yourself, and do what you want to.
Yeah, and
Wonderful
I
feeling.
would recommend people to read Sir's book, like Tryst with the Tribes. And there's one major reason behind that, because this is not a book जिसमें सिर्फ facts and figures है. This is a book which has a complete story, and it is like बीच में there are places where you will laugh, like
Yes.
your transfer from Sarguja to Bastar,
Yes.
and an IAS officer getting kidnapped by its own system. That anecdote itself is so funny. And I would 100% recommend people to read this. And so before,
And everybody, there's a learning. Everybody's
yeah,
experiences, everybody's smooth and the rough. You learn from it. You have a
hmm,
laugh, but also learn from
yeah,
it.
absolutely. And I think so it is very important to read about India's tribes, because I think so in next 10 or maybe 20 years, this is the economy which will be the backbone of Indian GDP, overall GDP.
Yes, yes, yes. And such a thriving and a wonderful and a dynamic system which of producers, of
Yeah.
manufacturers. But what it lacks is marketing people.
Hmm.
So we are trying to add the marketing angle so that this
Right.
whole thing will take the world by storm. So we
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
chipping at it, things will happen.
Yeah. So, sir, before we log off, one last question.
Yes, yes, yes.
What is the future of tribal economy now? Like, what are the systems, plans? What is this government's policies, and how are you looking at it?
Uh, the sky is the limit, Jayesh. I tell you, the
Hmm.
Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Vikas Mission is now a 3,000 crore project over the next
Wow.
5 years, which will do exactly these things that we have talked: enterprise,
Hmm.
road, marketing, branding, packaging. So
Yeah.
we're telling the tribals not to sell anything in raw form. Value add, brand and package. So you see the millets, रागी, ज्वार, बाजरा, मक्का, ये गरीबों का खाना माना जाता था.
Hmm.
गरीब लोग गांव में खाते थे. अब ये 300 रुपए किलो बिकता है शहरों. अमीरों का खाना हो गया है, because it doesn't have gluten, it doesn't have
Yeah. Yeah.
carbohydrate. So we have asked the local systems to package it and sell it for 300 rupees a kg rather than 20 rupees a kg in the village. So
Right.
there's a huge potential for this. 10x इसमें valuation का scope है, and you keep chipping at it. A startup, all
Hmm.
of it doesn't succeed. Any business, if you start, IIT graduates who start their business, not all succeed. Any
Yeah.
business that you succeed, like this podcast, hundreds would have started, but you have sort of come here. So any business, anything needs a lot of initiative, a lot of hard work,
Hmm.
a lot of facilitation, and then your own hard work adds to it to make it a success. But some
Yeah.
of us will fail on the wayside, so that has to be taken. So risk factors will have to be analyzed, and then what went wrong, and then keep chipping at it. And
Yeah.
this is the idea whose time has come, and this should be the next big story, where tribal enterprise and tribal craftsmanship and tribal artisanship and tribals take the world by storm. And then I say this is the Amul story for the tribals. What
Right.
Amul did to Anand and its milk, this Vandhan will do for tribals and their products.
Wow.
And 26,000 types all over the country. About 309 tribal hamlets, 5.5 crore population, and 26,000 types of products there to be produced and sold and taken to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very curious for one thing. Like, people in my generation, myself including, what can we do to sort of take this tribal economy forward now?
You get into a startup. Suppose you get to a place like say Bastar.
Yeah.
बस्तर में 100 तरह की वैल्यू एड चीजें होती है जिसकी आप वैल्यूएशन कर सकते हैं. वहां
Right.
पे आप उसको एमएसपी पे खरीदेंगे तो 30 रुपए किलो मिलेगी, और उसको मिनिमम एक्सपेंडिचर ऑफ से 10 लाख से आप उसकी ब्रांडिंग, पैकेजिंग और मार्केटिंग कर सकते हैं. ब्रोकन राइस, रेड राइस, ब्राउन राइस, रागी, ज्वार, बाजरा, मक्का, महुआ, इमली, इन सबों की ब्रांडिंग, पैकेजिंग और मार्केटिंग करके 10 लाख की चीज को आप 50 लाख में बेच सकते हैं. लेकिन एंटरप्राइज चाहिए. यहाँ पर दिल्ली में बैठे वो नहीं हो सकता है. If you get to a place where that is being produced and you set up a little 25 lakh unit with a loan from the bank or whichever source you can raise that money, raw materials are available at hand. उस रॉ मटेरियल की वैल्यू एडिशन की टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत ही सिंपल है, ब्रांडिंग पैकेजिंग की टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत ही सिंपल है. एंड एज अ यंगस्टर इफ यू से पिक अप टैमरिन और से 50 क्विंटल, 50 टन और 100 टन की आप व्यापार करिए तो 5 लाख से बढ़ के आप 50 करोड़ तक जा सकते हैं. बट देन एंटरप्राइज कहना आसान है, करने के लिए मेहनत लगेगी, आपकी नॉलेज लगेगी, बिजनेस का एक एक्यूमन होता है वो करना पड़ेगा. लेकिन आप सोचिए कि हम घर बैठे बैठे बटन दबा के बिजनेस कर ले, नहीं हो सकता है. So you'll have to
Right.
work hard, say 20 hours a day to start with, and then this will give you 10x returns. That is for
Right.
guaranteed. That's guaranteed.
Right. So, and towards any kind of success, the first step is to know about ki kya chal raha hai,
Know about
and
the
for that,
system.
this book is there.
This book is the guide. You read it and you
Yes.
know how to start a business in tribal areas and how simple and how good way it is and how well you can connect to the markets, the
Yeah.
Adi Mahotsavs, the exhibitions that we have talked about. Get
Hmm.
these tribals to the urban areas, get their things, then sell them. They make 5 times the business. The exhibitionists also can make some. So
Yeah.
this is an idea whose time has come. Get the
Yeah.
tribal products to the large markets, connect them to the international markets, and there is money to be made for everybody, including you, the startup, the tribal, the entrepreneur, the middleman, the business, everybody. So
Yeah.
it cannot be
Yeah.
done gratis. No business can survive gratis or by a hand holding alone. It will survive if it's a fair partnership where the outcomes, where the results, where the profits are shared equitably. And that is the
Right.
time that all youngsters read this book and you'll know what to do.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to buy the book, you will find the link in the bio, Amazon link, or
Yes.
you can even go to stores and buy this book.
You can go
So
to this amazing book at Bari stores in
yeah.
and market. Then you have this amazing store at Midlands in Aurobindo. They have these books. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
Amazon to hate. Amazon
Absolutely.
you can buy it very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. So, sir, thank you so much for giving us your time. And I hope so this podcast and this book inspires at least 10 people to do something for this economy and take this forward.
No, Jayesh. You give the link. I'll also pass it on to my friends,
Sure, sir.
my network and my link. I'll certainly get this on to a lot of people across the country.
Sure, sir.
And best wishes. And lovely talking to you.
Same here, sir. It was an honor for me to have you here and pick your brains over this topic, because this was, as I said, that I have always been ignorant, but now I am not. I know a lot about this and I want to read more about this. So yeah.
And I also will be very grateful for my publishers, Rupa, who have facilitated this.
Yes.
The Rupa publishers, they have been excellent. They have been very proactively promoting this book. And I would also like to put on record my thanks and gratefulness for them, and hope this reaches the farthest corners of the country. The book reaches this message reaches the farthest corners of the country, and the book gets into good readers who can get inspired and do something for the tribals and for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And before we log off, I would like to thank Geetu from Rupa Publication for connecting us, and that's how I got to know you. So
very good. She works for Rupa, and with the link between us. And thank you to her, and thank you to Divakar, and thank you to the Rupa team. Thank you for this wonderful interview that we had. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, sir.
Let's keep in touch. Let's keep in touch.
Absolutely, sir.
And that's most wonderful talking to you.
Same here, sir. Same here. Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Right.